Hello and welcome to a presentation of all the new features of Aspire version 9.5. Before we move on to individual demonstrations, let's take a summary look at all the features that have been added. As you can see, Aspire contains all the features that have been developed for version 9.5 and are broken down into key grouped areas such as infrastructure, job type, drawing, modelling and machining. And we have a broad spectrum of features that have been added to all these key areas. Whether it be the automatic download and entering of your license code to get your software working, the new addition of Rotary as a new job type, the improvements to text creation and editing, as well as the new picture editor and the ability to crop bitmaps to a vector, a far better way of importing Rotary based models, and being able to export that Rotary model as a wrapped entity rather than a flat entity, some significant improvements to Rotary machining support, as well as the new helical ramps. As part of our expansion of cloud-based services, we've introduced the ability to automatically download and enter your registered username and license code in order to get your software working. Now previously with version 9.5, at worst you'd have to manually type in that registered username and license code, or at best be able to copy and paste that from an email you may have received. However, with version 9.5, when connected to your customer account V&Co, the license can be automatically downloaded in order to get your software working. If you don't have internet connection, you can still use the manual typed option. So with that, let's start a session of the software. And immediately you will get this message, as this is the first time we started it. Do I want to enter my details through online or manual entry? So we're going to go online. I'll then be prompted to log in to my V&Co account. This will direct to portal.vectric.com, your login page. I'm going to enter my email address and the password which I created when I accepted the invitation to the account. And once I've directed in now, so that's validated that, I then will get the message pop up on the screen that the software has been licensed to Joe Bloggs Vectric, which is my registered username, and hit the finish button and my software starts. In version 9.5 we significantly improved the way we manage our clip art. In version 9 you'd have to install the clip art directly from the installation script contained on your USB stick, or alternatively each of the separate executables from your V&Co account. In both cases this would take considerable time and use up a lot of disk space. However, with version 9.5, if you don't install all the clip art, you'll still be presented with all that's available and you can download those items as and when required. And of course this has future scope to link across to purchasable clip art from our sister company Design and Make. If we look at some visual comparisons here, in version 9 you can see that you can install the clip art directly from the installation script on the USB stick, or alternatively each of the separate executables from your V&Co account. But once again, in both cases can take considerable time and considerable disk space. In version 9.5 you'll still be presented with all the available clip art and you can download it as and when required. So with that, let's show how that works. So I'm just going to start a session of the software now and a new file and go straight to my clip art and go down for instance to objects and people here, and I'm presented with the available clip art in this section. Some items have already been downloaded. You can see that because there is no download icon in the bottom right hand corner, whereas the ones below that bottle cap you can see there is a download icon in the bottom right hand corner showing that it needs to be downloaded before it can be used. So with that now I can right mouse key and go download. Okay, it will ask me to log in to my V&Co account, so I'm going to get the portal.vectric login page will come up, and I'm going to log in now with my email address and my password and sign in. Okay, that's linked across now. So with that, that item has now been downloaded and I can simply move that into the part space. Or alternatively now, if I've already connected, I can just simply paste that across and it will download and get pasted into the job at the same time. If I close the software now and restart it, so my connection is still there. So if I go now to start another part and introduce more clip art, for instance, I'm now going to add in these flowers. It won't prompt me. It would also automatically download and import because I'm already connected to my V&Co account. The biggest changes to version 9.5 certainly fall within Rotary in terms of the way we manage the job setup, the display of the different models and toolpaths, and the toolpaths themselves. In version 9, Rotary was only available as a gadget-only function through the top menus. As a consequence, it was very difficult to make job modifications, and we couldn't combine different layouts such as spiral with cylindrical within one job. In version 9.5, we no longer need gadgets in order to create the job setup. We have a new job type called Rotary with a dedicated workflow, and as a result we've made it very easy to edit parameters such as change the job size or the orientation, and we can combine spiral and cylindrical layouts within the same job, and we'll see demonstrations of that later. Important for existing users is that any Rotary job that was created using the gadget will be able to be opened in the new version with the forms actually opening the parameters that were previously created through the gadget. In terms of visual differences, in version 9 we have the new addition of the double-sided, but we do not have a Rotary job. Okay, and in order to create a Rotary job we would have to access this through the gadget menu, so gadgets, wrapping, wrap job setup, which would raise the form that you see in the middle of the screen there, of which you're entering the cylinder length, diameter, the axis of rotation, etc., and also whether you want either a cylindrical wrap or a spiral wrap. In 9.5 we have the addition of the new Rotary job type, so single-sided, double-sided and Rotary. On selecting Rotary you get the applicable parameters such as length, diameter, whether you want the zero position on the top of the cylinder or the center, the XY datum, whether your rotation axis is along the X, therefore wrapping the Y, or along the Y, therefore wrapping the X. Okay, so along the lines of the cylindrical wrap and spiral wrap, which were the wrapping layout options we had with V9, in V9.5 the job is always considered basically a cylindrical wrap, but you can, for a particular level or levels, change that to be a full spiral wrap. So in this case that we see on the screen, we've got a lamp stand where the lower half has a spiral wrapped clip art and the upper half is basically a standard cylindrical layout with a fluting toolpath. In terms of the way we display Rotary models, there's been huge changes here. In previous versions the wrapping was only available as a toolpath drawing option. Wrap models were open-ended in Aspire, which meant they weren't really particularly realistic. The wrapped face, or the face that faced you on the screen, was actually the seam rather than the center of the job, so it quite often meant that you needed to rotate the job in order to see the part you really wanted to see. And you couldn't visualize the model in cylindrical stock, you could only see it in relation to the unwrapped stock, the flat stock. In 9.5 we have automatic wrapping of Rotary jobs, so as soon as you have actioned it you'll see the wrap 3D model on the screen with the option to unwrap it to see the flat if required. There's new icons on the top toolbar to be able to switch that on and off. As stated before, you can open jobs created with the gadget. When the item is wrapped, it will wrap and face the middle of the part will be facing you rather than previously the seam, and we've able to support cylindrical stock, so we can easily see the relation between the model and the stock. We're now going to look at sort of 3 different examples that we're going to do. We're going to demonstrate in version 9. When you created the toolpath, you would then need to go to the toolpath drawing, and select which option it should be. So you'd have to remember the parameters that you originally put on the job setup, and here we are wrapping the Y values around the X. You can see here the relief would be open-ended, once again not being particularly realistic, and you can see the Vectric is actually, we would expect that to face us since that's the middle of the part, but it's actually being seen on the other side because basically we're looking at the seam, and essentially you would need to rotate that round in order to be able to see the simulation and the toolpath together. In 9.5, as soon as you create the toolpath here, you're going to see the wrapped model, and you'll see the toolpath facing you. You have icons on the top of the screen here to unwrap or rewrap, and some quite cool icons just to rotate the model if you did want to see items on the other side. You can also see, we talked about the easy ability to visualize the model inside the stock. This is how you would have visualized this unwrapped table leg in version 9, but in version 9.5 we see the table leg wrapped and in situ with the stock. Okay, so let's take a look at these differences by comparing the 2 products in use. So I'm going to go straight ahead now in version 9 of Aspire and create a wrapped job setup, okay, which is only accessible through gadgets. In this case it's a 20 cylinder length by diameter 3. My rotation axis is parallel to the Y, and my axis and my 0 is in the center, and I'm a simple cylindrical wrap. So I get the layout on the screen. Now I've suddenly realized actually I should have been working with a 5-inch diameter, so I come back up to my job setup form, and of course it's already translated the 3-inch diameter into what that width would be unwrapped. So for me to change that, I now need to use a calculator. So I'm going to come straight into the calculator here, and I'm going to change that to a diameter 5. So I need to find out what the circumference is, which is pi times diameter. So I shall do that now, and then I have to copy that out and come back into here and then paste that in. So that will actually change that to be a 5-inch diameter, but now I need to reorientate that. I actually got my orientation incorrect, and it needs to be parallel basically to the x-axis. So I'm going to be wrapping my y value, so I need to copy that value into the y and change the length of my x to be 20. And I must remember to change my thickness to be 2.5, i.e. the radius of the material, and I'm just going to simply change it to a light, more suitable material. Okay, so as you can see, making modifications post creation is particularly difficult with version 9. I'm now going to create some text. In this case it's going to be just very simply the word Vectric, and I'm going to place that on the screen and then have to reposition that and put it in the center. Going to go across to machining now, okay, and go straight up to the profile toolpath, and I'm going to do a depth of just 0.1 down with a 0.25-inch ball, and I'm engraving on the letters, and I shall calculate. We can see that there now. Now I'm not seeing the wrap model and I'm not seeing the wrap toolpath. So if I go up now to the toolpath drawing menu, toolpath drawing, wrap values, wrap y values around the x, okay, so we see the model, okay, but I'm actually looking at the seam, the joining seam here. So my actual letters are around the back side, so I have to rotate that round, which can be a little tricky in a wrapped view in order to see the Vectric, okay. And we can also see that the item is hollow, the cylinder is hollow, so not particularly realistic. So 2 things there. One is I was presented with the seam facing me, so I couldn't see my letters, and finally it's open-ended, so not showing a particularly realistic representation of a solid wooden block. So I'm now going to simulate that, so we can see that simulation, and we can see that with the toolpath on the screen. Okay, so that's that presentation shown in version 9. Now let's do it in version 9.5. Okay, so I started a session in 9.5 and we'll perform the same demonstration. So rather than gadgets, I can go straight to create new file. I've selected rotary as my job type, the length 20, diameter 3, and I'm orientating the rotation axis along the Y, therefore I'll be wrapping the X values. Okay, and I'm now going to OK that. So, I've suddenly realised, just like I did with the previous one, I need to change this to a 5-inch diameter. Well, that's very easy here. I simply change to 5 and OK. But finally I forgot that actually on my machine I need to reorientate this completely, because actually I want to have my rotation axis parallel to the X and wrapping the Y. Well, that's easy too. I can simply select that option and that will rotate the part round. So with that, I'm now ready to create the text. So I can place the text on the screen now and just type in Vectric, and I will just locate that in the center, go across to machining now, select the profile toolpath and calculate, and immediately you can see on the screen that the toolpath is facing me from the middle of the part. If I rotate it, it's solid now rather than being open-ended, and of course I can now move forward and simulate the toolpath. So we can see there are some significant improvements to the speed with which we can create the actual job type, the way in which we can modify that if we do need to go back, and of course the way that the model is displayed. Okay, so there's been considerable improvements in a number of key areas with Rotary. In the next demonstration we're going to do something that was previously not possible with version 9. When setting up a rotary job using the gadget tool, you had the option to either have a simple cylindrical wrap or a spiral wrap with a number of revolutions. However, in version 9.5 every job is considered essentially a cylindrical wrap, with the option to have dedicated levels that are set to wrapping to allow the clip art to be wrapped round the cylinder. So in this example we're going to combine the two by having essentially a spiral wrap portion in the lower region of the lamp stand with a standard sort of cylindrical wrap with the fluting toolpath in the upper region. Before we take a look at Aspire 9.5, I wanted to show the spiral layout using the gadget in version 9. So from the gadget menu, gadget, wrapping, wrap job setup again, and in the lower right hand corner here I'm going to set it to a spiral wrap with 5 revolutions. What that does is create an oversized part, so it's extended in Y here with the vector to help locate the clip art in order to be able to wrap it round 5 times. But as you can see, it's created an oversized model which will restrict us from obviously combining this with a standard cylindrical wrap in one half of the model. So I'm going to close this down now and we're going to open Aspire 9.5. Okay, so we've started a session of 9.5. I'm going to go straight across and create a new file here, 20 in length, 5 diameter. And I'm going to bring in some clip art, which is going to be the clip art for the weave. So I'm going to drag that into the space, and immediately it's asked me essentially would I like to modify the model to move the 0 plane up to maximize the stock that we've got. I'm going to say yes now. I can go straight to the 3D view. You can see the model with the relief, and if I did want to see the stock in situ as well, you can see that together, and it's modified the essentially the 0 plane to accommodate the extra clip art that we've added to make full use of the stock. Adding that 0 plane would be something that would need to be done manually, and obviously its base height would need to be modified manually as well. So this is automatically done in 9.5. So I'm just going to come back now to the 2D view and swap across to our 2D menus, and before I start to manipulate that clip art I need to really create a dividing line down the middle which will differentiate between the sort of spiral wrap and the standard cylindrical layout. So I'm going to go into my drawing menu and just add in a vector from the center and just going straight up by 90 degrees, straight up at 90 degrees. I'm now going to take my my clip art here and just manipulate it. So I'm going to change the size. I'm going to increase that a bit to make it a bit more chunky, and I'm going to rotate it round by 90 degrees using 9 on the keyboard. Just slightly reposition that now, and I'm going to make a copy of that. Okay, so I'm going to simply hold the control key down and move it up. I'm not so worried about the alignment because I can address that after the fact. I'm just going to move this up now, and I'm happy that that is all okay. I've got enough length there to wrap all the way around. I'm going to select those items there and just align those to the left edge. Okay, and then come in and group those items together as one single object. That allows me now to move that around as a single entity, and of course rotate that as a single entity. So currently if I go to my 3D view here, you can see it's just wrapping around there once. Okay, and actually if I rotate this even, okay, so I'm going to rotate this now and bring that across, you can see once again it's not fully wrapping all the way down, it's only doing one wrap, or what actually can be seen on the physically over the job space. So what I need to do now is to manipulate this to only essentially overlap the edge, just overlap the dividing line. Okay, and then I need to change the level to be a wrapped level. Before I do that, I'm going to do some housework here and create a new level and move the weave to that level. Okay, come back now to my clip art and just rotate that round and move this into position. So we're going to move that roughly like so. Okay, now I'm happy with that at the moment. If we then have a look at the 3D view, once again it's the angle's correct, but it's not really wrapped. So I can come back to my level now and just simply select right mouse key, wrapping. So that's immediately wrapped that round. Okay, but what I'd like to do really is to make this a little bit more of a random intertwined almost tile all the way round. So what I'm going to do now is simply come back to here and rotate this back round. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate it back vertically, and I'm going to just change its size a little and increase its, okay, and then rotate that back round, so maybe just increase the size a little more, rotate that round, okay, and just move that back like so. Okay, and just increase that now, and we should, when we come back to the 3D view, see that we've got this quite sort of unusual wrap of the relief over the cylinder. Essentially it looks like we've tiled essentially something round the cylinder, but in essence this is just a spiral of the clip art that happens to overlap, and because we've got that set to merge, we get this nice wrap or random looking wrap all the way around the cylinder. Now I need to put in a divider between the top half and the bottom half, so I'm going to come back to my clip art now, and in my 2D view simply pick up the 3D tabs here, drag one across, okay, and we can see that's particularly small, so I'm just going to rotate that and scale that up. So I'm just going to essentially scale that and just extend it in length either side, and I'm going to change the height of that, so we're going to have that is going to be 0.3, okay, and we are going to now center that on the screen, and I'm going to make a copy of that at the bottom, so I'm going to pick that up and just hold control and move that to the bottom. Okay, so I'm happy with somewhere around about there. Okay, and we have a look at the 3D view, and we can see that we've added a base there and the divider across the middle, so that looks nice. We've maybe got a slight overextension here, so I just need to modify my clip art a little, so I'm just going to just wind this back a tad, So I'm just going to just simply bring that back now. Okay, and maybe just move that slightly that way, and we should, if we have a look at 3D view, have the wrap all the way around. Okay, so that's quite nice, and like I say, it's a nice organic intertwined weave, which has essentially come from a simple bit of clip art being wrapped round there and overlapping and merging into itself. So back to the 2D view now, and I want to add in basically a fluting toolpath to this region here. So I can access that from the gadget menu. So I'm going to come up to gadgets now and go down to wrapping and fluting layout. So in this case we want to set 6 flutes. Okay, so I'm going to enter 6 there. Now the offset from the start, so that means the distance from the end of the part through to where we want the start of the flute, and that is going to be roughly around about 11.5, and we'll take that up to within 1 inch of the end and just OK that. So we've got the vectors that have been created here. I now need to basically decide the start depth for these, and then obviously the cut depth thereafter. So with that, I'm now going to come in and pick those vectors. Okay, just those ones, just the fluting ones. Go through to the machining. Okay, and I'm going to need to set up my fluting toolpath. So in this case, we know this is a 5-inch diameter. Okay, and we are going to go down there, and the maximum depth here is 0.3, so our clip art here is 0.3, so we're going to go down. So I'm going to OK that, and we're going to do a start depth of 0.3 and go down by a further 0.2. Okay, using a larger tool than our 1/4-inch bore. So I'm going to select that and just basically copy that tool and change it to a 1-inch and a 1-inch diameter. Okay, and change the cut depth maybe just to 0.25 and OK that, and we are going to do a ramp at the start and the end, 25%. So essentially it's going to smoothly ramp in down from the top to create like a groove, then it's going to go at a constant depth of 50% and then essentially lead back out or ramp back out. And we'll calculate that toolpath. We can see that there. I'm not going to simulate that yet. What we need to do is to create the toolpath for the lower half too. So back to look at the rest here, and we need to really just pick a ball nose here to pick out most of the detail. So I'm going to come back into the 3D finishing, and I'm going to use just a simple 1/4-inch ball. This is not particularly efficient because it will be removing the material on the right hand side here, 90 degrees, and calculate. Okay, and now I'm going to simulate all those toolpaths, and now we've got our simple lamp stand where we used a combination of a spiral wrap at the lower half and then a standard cylindrical layout with a fluted toolpath at the top part. So you can see that it's created quite a neat shape through the ability to combine levels that have wrapping set with those that don't. And once again, this is something that was previously not possible with version 9. For those Aspire users already using Rotary, they're probably fully aware of the vector unwrapping tool that's only available as a gadget in V9, and a limitation was that the vector had to be in the center of the job before applying the unwrap. In version 9.5, this is no longer a gadget-based function, but written in as a new icon in the Transform Objects menu. It's far easier and simpler to initiate the unwrap, and we have multiple center of rotation options available. Well, the best way of showing the differences is to look at the two products. So let's take a look at Aspire version 9, and we're going to create a wrapped job setup. And I'm going to bring in a cross section of a table leg, so we'll use a table leg as an example to show the vector unwrapper. So I'm going to import the table leg.eps file here. You can see the cross section here. Before I create the 2 rail sweep surface, I do need to create some drive rails, so I will locate a drive rail at one end and then another at the right hand end, and we'll then select those two vectors, go straight to the two rail sweep surface and pick the cross section, and in the 3D view you can see the unwrapped table leg there. I'm just going to change the material color to something more realistic, and then initiate the wrap, which is done through the toolpath drawing menu. Toolpath drawing, wrap the Y values. So at this point I'm happy with my table leg. One limitation with version 9 is the fact that the relief created is actually hollow. The model is hollow, so rather than showing as a solid piece of wood, so not truly realistic. And I'm now going to basically change this sort of small cylindrical section in the middle to be octagonal. But before I do that, I need to find out what the diameter of that is so I can create the correct size vector. So coming back to the 2D view now, I'm going to use the measuring tool and measure from the lower left hand corner basically to that height. So we can see that height now. Now the height is 1 inch, so I can close that down. So the 1 inch height means a 2 inch radius. So I'm going to create a circle basically of 2 inches in diameter. Okay, so that's set there. And now I need to create my octagonal shape to fall outside of that diameter. So this is the sort of limitation size here. I need to make sure that my octagonal shape is outside. So it's 8 sides, and I'm just going to go there and just expand that out, and 1.1 will do, and close that. And as you can see there, we've got that octagonal shape falling outside of the 2 inch diameter. Therefore, when we do merge this into the existing model, it will cover the existing 2 inch diameter region in the center of the table leg. But as stated earlier, a limitation of this command is that the vector has to be located in the center of the workpiece. So I'm just going to select that now and just move that to the center. Okay, it's still selected, and I'm going to go straight up to the gadgets, wrapping, and then you select the vector unwrapper. So we can see that vector has been unwrapped across the workpiece there. Now it's going to be placed in this region here, but what I need to do is to create a vector to drive this cross section across before we rewrap. So with that, I'm just going to zoom into the middle now and create actually using the extrusion. So I'm going to create a quick vector somewhere about there through to here. So this will be my sort of extrusion drive rail. I'm going to select that now, go straight into the extrusion command, and select now my cross section. I'm going to make sure that I merge this in, so merge option, apply that, and then go back to the 3D view, and we can see now that we have added an octagonal section into the middle of the table leg to replace the original 2 inch round section. Okay, so now what we're going to do is look at the same demonstration but in version 9.5. Okay, so we started a session of Aspire 9.5. I'm going to go straight ahead and create my rotary job. So I'm going to OK that now, and we're ready to import our tableleg.eps. And one thing I don't have to do with this version is it automatically creates drive rails for me based on the fact that I may well be wanting to create a 2-rail sweep surface. So that's all done for me, so I can go straight ahead now and come up to the modeling menu and select the drive rails and the cross section and apply that. And we can look in the 3D view, and immediately that's shown with the correct color, it's shown correctly wrapped, and it's a solid model. So some big improvements there just on visual display. So one thing I'm going to do next is to create the vector for unwrapping. Now we already know the dimensions, so I'm simply going to go ahead now and go into the drawing menu and select the polygon and basically just make sure that is 1.1, and I'll go ahead now and select the vector and unwrap it. I don't need to use the gadget, okay, and I don't need to have the vector located in the center. You can see from the Transform Objects menu, we've got this new icon that unwraps. It checks to see if it falls within the extremities of the 4-inch stock that we've got. That's no problem at all there. You've got different options here using the center of the contour, center of the workspace, which is the original option, and a custom point if you actually want to move that off center. So I'm going to go for the use center contour and apply. Okay, so that's unwrapped it for me. I'm going to go ahead now and create the drive rail for the extrusion surface, and simply select that vector now, come into the modeling, extrusion, pick the cross section, merge that in and apply, and we'll have a look at the 3D view. So as you can see there, we very quickly added that in now. Okay, the tools, the visual tools to be able to see the wrapped component as a solid model, and the fact with the vector unwrapper I didn't have to center it, and I had multiple options, meant it was far easier for me to work with it, and we've arrived at the final design far quicker. For version 9.5 there are significant improvements to the way text is created and edited. If we look back to version 9, you would only ever see the text placed on the screen after completing the entries in the form. There was no dynamic modification, so if you're changing, for instance, the height or the justification, then you would need to apply that in order to see the effect on the screen. And also any transformations to the text would be reset when editing the text content. For instance, if you'd rotated the text, scaled it, mirrored it, etc., and then wanted to make a change, those changes were all lost and the text was presented in its original location. Whereas for 9.5, when you start by clicking on the screen, which will show a text box showing its start position, its height and its alignment, and the text would begin to be displayed as soon as you enter the first character. So we can see also we have dynamic modification. If you're changing the font or the height, then that will immediately be updated on the screen without having to apply. And most importantly is any transformations to the text are maintained when editing the text content, and that applies when rotating the text, whether you've wrapped it along a curve, whether you've modified its kerning, also some non-proportional scaling or mirroring. That's all maintained if you go ahead and edit that text at a later point. Okay, the best way for us to highlight these improvements is to see both these versions in action. So I'm going to start with version 9 and we're going to open an existing job. In this case it's a sign for a local rowing club that we will complete later on in the presentation. But first let's take a look at some of the current issues we have with the way text is created and edited in version 9. So I'm going to go across to the draw text function, and I would expect to click on the screen to be able to enter my start position for the text, but of course it's looking for me to create the text first. So I'm going to come back up, and in this case I'm going to enter the word canoe, and then I hit the apply on the form to find out where that's going to be located, and in this case I may want to move that into a more suitable location. Now following on from that, I actually want to create shorter height letters but the same width, so I'm going to just scale that down, and I'm happy with that, but I want to actually change the word from canoe to canoeing. So I'm just going to simply add on the letters ing and apply on the form, but of course you can see that the scaling has been reset, keep maintaining the height but obviously losing the disproportional scaling that we had. Similarly, you notice here there is no way for me to rotate the text even though I'm in the transform stage, so I need to close out the form, come back, click on the actual word, rotate it, okay, and now let's, for instance, I wanted to change it from canoeing to kayaking, so I come back into the form and simply change those letters to kayak and apply, and once again it's reset that action. So there are a number of different editing functions that are basically completely ignored if you come back and modify the text. And this also applies, for instance, to if I'm doing any kerning. Therefore I maybe wanted to change the distance between some of the letters. Okay, and then if I come back into the form and change the back to canoeing, so I'm just going to come back in and change to canoe and apply, then of course I've lost the kerning that I had before. So with that, let's take a look at the sign itself. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that out, and this essentially is going to be Salisbury Rowing Association. So the Salisbury's written in here, rowing, and then association, and then some dates at the top. Okay, so first of all I'm going to come in and create some text for the rowing. So once again I would expect to come in here and click, but of course I can't. I'm simply going to enter rowing and apply and find out where it's been located. Okay, so I need to change the height to be 1 and apply, and I could actually just dynamically locate this, but a good way to position it is to select the vector with which you want to center it within, go to the align selected objects function and center the text within the outer vector. So I'm happy there, that's all fairly easy. Now I want to add in the town here, which is Salisbury. So I'm going to come back to my text now and enter Salisbury. So this will be SALLBURY. So I'm going to apply that. So we've got the text there down in the bottom left hand corner. Just going to quickly move that into position there. And I'm going to come now and shift and pick the vector onto which we want to wrap the text, come to the text on a curve function and apply that. So at the moment you can see that's not quite halfway in between. I know the offset distance needs to be 0.25, so I apply that. The actual spacing is not particularly good here, so I'm going to increase the spacing. Okay, and I'm happy with that. Close that, and I've just noticed actually that I've spelt Salisbury wrong. It shouldn't be 2 L's, it should be L-I. So I'm going to go back in now and edit that text. So I'm going to come in and change that L to an I and apply, and of course I've gone and lost all the edits that I've done, including the wrapping onto the curve. So I've got to close that back out now, shift and pick up the curve again, come back and do the wrapping onto it and change the spacing, and now close that out. So I also have the text for the other side, which is the association, and at this point we're now going to add some text for the date at the top. So it's going to be a from and to date. So I'm going to come into here and add in this is from 1934, so I apply, and of course I need to zoom out because it's probably applied at the bottom left hand corner, which it has. So I need to move that up, and I'm going to rotate it now, which I need to come out of the form to do. So I'm going to take that now and rotate it and try and move it into position. And I've noticed it's too big. Okay, so I need to come back to the form now and change its height to be 0.8 for instance maybe, and apply that. And of course that's lost the transformation, so I need to come back in now and rotate that again and place that into position. I'm happy with that at that point. Now I want to flip it and have it on the other side and have 2018 written. So I'm going to make a copy of that and just rotate it. So I'm going to use 9 on the keyboard, okay, and just move that one into position. And so I've got the date on the other side. Of course what I want to do now is just come back into the draw text function and quickly change it from 1934 to 2018. But of course I've lost the rotation again, so I've got to close that out, come back to the rotation, put it into place, and then we've completed the sign. So now I'm going to do the same in version 9.5. Okay, so we've got the same part in version 9.5, and like we did with version 9, we'll take a look at some of the simple fundamental issues that we have and see whether these have been remedied with version 9.5. And now I'm going to go to the draw text function, and you can immediately see here it's given me a location for where that text is going to start, and wherever I click you can see that I've got a text box representing the text alignment, whether that's right, center or middle. You can see that's been changed dynamically on the screen there. And you've got the height, so if I change that to say 2, you can see that immediately being updated on the screen, and back down to say 1, and you can see that location being placed. So immediately after that, I don't have to come up to the text entry text box. I can simply start typing canoe, and we'll see the letters on the screen. Great. So now, as we did before, I'm going to just mid-flow, which is nice here, I'm going to click on that, scale that down now. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then add in ing to create canoeing, and as you can see, that kept that transformation. Now similarly, if I want to rotate that, what we had to do in version 9 was to come out of the text entry, because the transformation box there did not have the rotation anchors, but they are now here, so I can just rotate that and maybe come back in and type in kayak, and as you can see there, it's kept the rotation and the scaling. And similarly with the kerning, that would also be maintained. So you can see it's a big leap forward with the creation and editing of text, because typically we don't always get things right first time, or quite often we like to use templates for text where we then come in and just update the font or update the text entry, particularly if you're making plaques, for instance, where you might have sort of template text that is just edited to be different dates or different names. So I'm just going to delete that out now, and we're going to get rid of that text and come in and look at the sign here itself, and going to create the first word, which is rowing. So I'm going to just plonk that there. You can immediately see that that is the wrong height, so I'm going to change that to 1, and I'm going to add rowing into this location. And similarly, like we did before, I'm just going to shift and pick that outer curve and align to the center of that vector. Now that was simple here. Now we're going to add in the word Salisbury into this region here, as we did with version 9. So straight into the text, I'm just going to say create it down here, and going to type in SALSBURY and close out that form. Going to shift now and pick that out of vector, do the text on a curve, and we're going to align to the curve. We're going to be on the other side, and we need to apply an offset of 0.25. Okay, and we can now see that letters, but the spacing's not quite right, so I'm going to need to increase that up until that is right. Okay, I'm happy with that. Close that out. And just like I did with version 9, I've suddenly realized that I've spelt it incorrectly. So I'm going to come back in now to the text form and just change that L to an I, and that's kept the spacing, and it's just replaced the L with an I. So that is perfect. That saved me a hell of a lot of time. So I'm just going to close out that form. We'll switch on the other text the other side for association, and now I'm going to come up and create my 2 dates here. So simply come in with the text, place it somewhere around about here, and this is going to be 1934. Immediately I can see it's the wrong height, so I'm just going to change that to 0.8. Okay, and mid-flow I can actually click on it, rotate it, just get it into position. Okay, and just apply a bit more rotation. Okay, I'm happy with that now, and I'm going to copy that and paste it, so Control C, Control V, and just use the 9 on the keyboard to rotate. I'm going to move that now across to here. Okay, and just come back to the draw text function and change that to 2018. And as you can see, we've completed the sign in a much shorter time than we could have done with version 9, given the mistakes that we made along the way. Two new image editing functions that have been added to version 9.5 are the ability to crop an image to a vector and to change its color characteristics. In version 9 there was no ability to crop an image, and also if we wanted to change the brightness, contrast or gamma, there was no way of doing that, and we would have to do that in a third-party software. This becomes particularly important if you're going to create, for instance, a lithophane, or if you're looking to create a suitable image for maybe creating a laser picture toolpath. So with 9.5 these have been added. So we have the ability to change the brightness, contrast and gamma, as well as obviously change it from color to grayscale, and to add a feathered border around it, whether that be rectangular or oval. And as stated before, this is ideal if you're looking to create a lithophane or looking to create a suitable output for a laser picture toolpath. So if we look at the visual differences between the two products, in version 9 you had nothing. There was no ability to crop an image or to change its color characteristics. In version 9.5, under the Edit Objects menu, there are two new functions here, one for cropping and one for the color change. So we can see here in this particular example, which we'll go through here, we've taken an image of a tiger and created a vector around its head, which is then cropped to create the trimmed out version. We've increased the brightness slightly since it's a dull image, changed it to grayscale, and then added a nice feathered border around the outside, and at that point we're happy to move on to maybe using that for a different purpose. So with that, the best way to show this is to go into the software. So I'm going to open version 9.5 and just create a new file, just its width and height of 5, and I'm going to import an image directly into this space. We've got a tiger here, similar to the one we saw in the PowerPoint, and I'm going to create a circle centered somewhere around about there and expanding out. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to close that now and then shift and pick the image, okay, and then use the crop bitmap, which is the new function in the Edit Objects menu, and that will crop the image to the selected vector. Now I want to then scale that up, so I'm going to change its size to be 4, and I'm going to center that using the centering tool here, and we have the cropped image of the tiger's head, centrally located, height and width 4. At that point I do need to want to change some characteristics with the image. So next to the crop bitmap icon is the picture editor, which brings up the form on the left hand side. You can see I can change the contrast, I can change the brightness, and I can change the gamma. Okay, in this case I'm just going to slightly increase the brightness, and I'm going to increase the gamma, and at that point I now want to change it to a grayscale image, so I'm going to change it to grayscale. And given the fact that this is going to be used as a laser picture, so I'm going to just add a border around that, so a feathered edge border. So rather than getting a hard edge, it's a nice soft edge to the effect. In this case I need an oval border, and of course I can change that depending on how much feathering I want. So with that I am happy, and now I have edited my original color picture of the tiger, trimmed it to a vector, and applied some changes to its color characteristics, ready for another operation later down the line. Further to the improvements with Rotary, we've seen some big changes with the way we import models, and in particular Rotary based models. With version 9 there was no specific workflow for Rotary, and it was often very difficult to rotate and orientate the model to fit the axis of the block, and most importantly it was very difficult to scale the model to fit within the block, given the fact you're having to calculate obviously the unwrapped widths and trying to fit that to the block. Now with version 9.5 that's been completely rewritten with a new model import, only displaying the relevant parameters depending on whether you're importing a rotary based full 3D model or a flat model. We have automatic initial orientation of model, which really helps try to get the part into the correct position before the unwrap. We have a blue bounding cylinder that's shown around the model, which helps us visualize the orientation of the model. Automatic scaling to fit the block, very important. The calculations are done to ensure that the model size is scaled in order to fit your stock, and we have the ability to obviously move that rotation axis to ensure that we get a correct wrap when we action this, and the wrap result is displayed on the screen. So the best way for us to show this is to look at the two different products. So I'm going to start by opening version 9. Okay, so we have a session of Aspire version 9, and I'm going to start by creating a rotary part. So using the gadget wrapping wrap job setup. My cylinder length is 25, diameter 4, orientation along the y-axis, wrapping the x values. My Z0 is in the center, and it's a simple cylindrical wrap. So I've got my job set up. Going to import now the STL file, which is the table leg. I now need to orientate that correctly, so I now need to work out which way I'm going to orientate it. So in this case it's going to be the back, and I need to obviously change the size. We can see that the block is extremely small in comparison to the model, so I'm going to scale the model from millimeters to inches and just resize that now, so center it in the model, enter the part, and I know that this is going to be 16 inches basically the wrap value, so I'm going to change that to 16. Once again, this needed some pre-calculation to be able to determine that, and I'm going to center the model again now and just move the rotation axis so it's running through my part, and at that point I'm happy to unwrap. Do you want to unwrap? Yes. Okay, so we don't see the wrap relief initially, we see the unwrapped, and I'm just going to change the color to be something more representative, so the beach light, and we can, if required, see the wrapped model in Aspire. So I'm going to go to toolpath drawing, wrap X values around the Y axis, so we can see that, and I'm happy with the result that we have there. Now what we want to do is to add on some relief onto the top of the leg. So I'm just going to go back and show that as an unwrapped model. It makes it easier for me to work with it, and we're going to add the relief onto the top of the leg here. Now I can go back and use some clip art as we've done in VCarve, but of course the advantage with Aspire is that we can use an extra STL file or further STL files. So I'm going to go back into import a component, and we're going to take the grapes. Okay, and once again there's no difference in terms of the workflow, so I then have to try and position this again. So I'm going to center it and move this down, and I now need to specify, have I got everything right? Discard both sides and okay that. So do I want to unwrap? No. Okay, so I've got that on the model now. So I now need to orientate that into position. Okay, so I'm going to just basically create a new level now to support that. So insert a new level, and we're going to move those grapes up, and I'm just going to change the height maybe to something more representative, 0.2, and we're going to rotate those round. Okay, and move them up into position. And what I am going to use here is, rather than mirroring, I'm going to use the new mirror mode command for the level. So we've got the grape specified on a different level, and with that level I'm going to say okay, combine mode, mirror mode, right to left. Okay, in this case actually it's left to right, isn't it? Okay, so we've got that there, and we can manipulate those further. So if I wanted to take that and then just slightly shift it, so we can see that we can get to the point where we are happy with the result, and I can now view that as a fully wrapped 3D model. So I'm going to do once again under the toolpath drawing, and we can see that now wrapped over the model, and we're just going to, and there we can see. Okay, then I now need to move on and do the machining for that, so we're going to move across to, just going to show that as unwrapped again. It makes it easier for me to manipulate, so wrapping off. Going to move across to the machining now, and I'm going to go straight to the 3D finishing and use the model boundary, a 0.25 inch tool, 90-degree raster angle, and just quickly calculate that. Okay, so we can see the toolpath that's being created. We can simulate that now. Okay, and if needed I can go back and switch on through the toolpath drawing menu the wrapping of that, so we can see that in situ there, and we can see once again it's a little bit slow with version 9 in terms of manipulating the view, so we can see that wrapped simulation and in situ with the toolpath. Okay, so we've seen how we would do that in version 9. Now let's see the big improvements with version 9.5. Okay, so I'll start a new session of Aspire 9.5. I'm going to go ahead and create a new Rotary job and import the STL file. So straight ahead now and import the table leg.stl. We're immediately presented with a different format, differentiating between the full 3D model and a flat model options with dedicated parameters and workflow for each. It's automatically attempted to align my model to the block, and it's given me a bounding box around the model and the rotation axis. We can clearly see the rotation axis is not running through the model, which I would need to change to ensure a true wrap. So I'm just going to now orientate the model so I can move that down. Now you can see that I'm just going to move that down gently now so it's inside the actual model, and it will immediately resize the bounding box. Now one thing I must do is actually scale the model to fit the stock, so I'm just going to scale that now, and you'll immediately see that presented on the screen is the stock and my model within that with the bounding box. So I actually want to remove some of these sort of end stock here, so I'm going to actually resize the material block as well and just hit OK, and that will unwrap the model but show the presented wrapped model on the screen. So I can manipulate that, have a look, I can see that in its unwrapped format as well, and I'm happy with the result and ready to move forward. You can see given the stock size, you can see the table leg, that's at 2 inches, so it's filling the maximum height is filling the complete 4-inch diameter cylinder that we have. Okay, so the next stage is to add some of the clip art or relief on the top there, so I'm going to add in a new level first, okay, and go ahead and go to clip art and add in some clip art. But of course, remembering this is Aspire, we can add in obviously extra STL files like we did with the version 9 one. So I'm just going to position the orientate the model and go and grab my grapes. Okay, in this case it's a flat model. Okay, very easy, don't have to do anything here, and just go OK. So immediately that's presented on the screen. So very simple to bring in a model, because we differentiate between a flat model and a wrapped 3D model. Now I do need to just quickly change the height of those grapes to say 0.2, and I'm now going to also manipulate the height. So I'm just going to change slightly the height of my table leg, because I know that that may burst through, so I'm just going to change that down to 1.9. Okay, and then we're going to come back and manipulate the grapes. So I'm going to pick that up now and just rotate that round, and I'm happy with that level of rotation. Move it across, and we'll put it somewhere around about there, and I'm going to now close out that form, and just rather than obviously mirror that, I'm going to use the mirror mode. So with that level, mirror mode right to left. That gives us a nice result, and I can immediately come back up and see the wrap result. And as you can see, it's much easier to work in the wrapped view now that we've significant speed ups there. So we can see that, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm willing to move forward to machining. So I'm going to go straight across now, set up my block, everything's fine there. There's still a bit of material clearance at the top, and go straight to the 3D finishing, 0.25 inch ball and rastering at 90 degrees. Okay, so the toolpath's complete. I can now simulate that. Okay, so the simulation is complete, and we can see the result that we would get using that particular tool. And of course I can view the wrap simulation and also the wrapped toolpath. So there you can see some significant improvements to the way we import models in version 9.5 and the way we can visualize and work with a wrap model through to actually creating toolpaths. With version 9.5 there's a significant improvement to the way we handle spiral ramp moves between toolpath profiles. Now in version 9, helical ramps were output as a series of straight line moves. Essentially the spiral ramp would be broken into a lot of straight line segments, which could create a very large G-code file. Whereas for 9.5 those ramps are honoured as arcs, so their output, the output is far smaller file, but it does require an updated post-processor. Now the best way to demonstrate these differences is to output a very simple toolpath using the existing post-processor and a new one that's been adapted for the outputting of arcs. So with that I'm going to start version 9.5 and create a new file 5x5 and simply add a simple circle which will be centered on the job and go straight through to machining. So the material setup very simple, just thickness 0.2, and we've got our clearance heights correct. Moving straight through to the profile toolpath, starting at 0, cut depth 0.1 with a 1/4 inch end mill. Importantly, we're going to switch on the ramps to the toolpath, and I'm going to go for the spiral option and simply calculate. So if we have a look from the side here, you can see the tool is gradually ramping down to the blue toolpath level, so you can see that very clear ramped move down to the toolpath profile. Now if we just simulate that very quickly so you can see that being cut. Okay, and now the next stage is for us to output that using the two different post processors. So let's close out of that form now and go to the save toolpath function. Okay, and I'm just going now to select the standard G-code option. So we're just going to go into the, you can see here that we've got G-code arcs and G-code helical arcs. So I'm going to select the G-code arcs here now, and we've got the arcs in inch, and I'm going to save that. Okay, so we're going to save it onto the desktop. Okay, and this is going to be called no arcs, and we'll save that. Okay, and then we're going to take the same toolpath, so I'm just going to change the post processors now and to use the helical arcs, and we'll save that and we'll put with arcs, and we'll just take a look at the difference between those two toolpaths. So they've now been saved. So I'm going to come across now and just look at the no arcs file. Okay, and we'll just simply open that up into a notepad here, and we can simply see that we have an awful lot of entries into there for what is essentially a simple ramp down to a toolpath profile. So with that, I'm just going to close the no arcs one, and we'll look at the with arcs. And as you can see there, it's a far smaller file, correctly output with the arcs to produce a far smaller G-code file. Within machining, there's been some significant improvements in the way we manage rotary jobs. New for version 9.5 is support for G93, which means that the rotation speed will vary to maintain a constant feed rate. Therefore, you'll get a much better finish quality than you used to do with the no support for G93. Similarly, when outputting the file using a rotary post, you would be originally prompted in version 9 to enter the diameter of the cylinder and enter whether the zero position on the cylinder was the surface or the center. So you'd still have to add that rather than that being automatically extracted. Well, that's changed for version 9.5, and those parameters are extracted from the job and written into the header of the G-code file. So with that, let's take a look. So I've got a session of VCarve desktop started here, and I'm going to open an existing model. It's one that we saw earlier. So I'm going to switch across to the simulation. There you can see the Vectric text that's going to be engraved, and if we just quickly simulate that, you can see that. So with that, I'm now going to output that using a rotary post. So I'm going to save that toolpath there, and here we're going to be using a wrapped post, which is wrapping the y-axis to the A, which is exactly what we want since this is aligned to the x-axis. So we're going to be wrapping the y values. So I'm going to save that toolpath now, and I'm going to simply call that y to A, so y to A, and we'll save that onto the desktop. And then I'm just going to pop open that text file now, and we can see at the top is specified the length. We've also got the radius and of course the diameter there. So you can see that those values have all been entered into the top of the header for the G-code file automatically rather than the manual entry of V9. So for VCarve desktop users, it's a much more simple process to what people have been used to with VCarve Pro and Aspire in the past. Okay, so let's summarize all the new features that have been added to Aspire version 9.5. We initially looked at some changes to the infrastructure in the form of the automatic download and entering of your license details in order to get your software working, how that also extended to the way we can download clip art. We've dramatically explored the changes to Rotary and the fact that a new job type has been added and a huge raft of improvements surrounding that. The improved text editing and creation tools that have been implemented, the new vector unwrapper, the picture editor and cropping of bitmaps to a vector, and within modeling, the far easier way in which we can import either flat or 3D models and be able to export them as a fully wrapped 3D model. Within machining, we've added some necessary improvements for Rotary, and very importantly, we've added the helical ramp support, which creates a far smaller G-code file. So as you can see, version 9.5 represents some excellent improvements over version 9.